01 I was the infamous scatterbrained trophy wife of the upper crust. To my face they addressed me respectfully as Mrs. Shen. Behind my back they all snickered that I was a brainless love fool. What did they know? I simply loved my husband so deeply that I couldn't survive without him. So when my husband brought home his pregnant mistress and brazenly ordered me to take care of her, I bowed my head and agreed meekly. Throughout her entire pregnancy I tended to both of them flawlessly. And finally my husband had a change of heart and returned to my side. I cried tears of joy. To celebrate, I decided to accompany my husband to a party once again. My husband, confined to a wheelchair, trembled with fear. Seizing the chance while I went to fetch him a drink, he begged his buddies for help. Cut the action. Everyone knows your wife is head over heels for you, one scoffed. Exactly. She stuck by you even after you became disabled. She's even willing to raise your mistress's kid. And now you want to rub it in our faces with this PDA? Another jeered. I leaned down, my scarlet-painted fingernails brushing the cold sweat off his forehead. I met his terrified gaze and pressed a glass of juice into his trembling hand. How could you think that of me, husband? I love you so much after all. I was hand-washing the clothes my husband Silas Shen planned to wear the next day when the villa's front door was kicked open with a deafening crash. Despite having a washing machine and a full staff of servants, I always preferred to tend to Silas's things personally. It was my way of proving just how much I loved him. Silas stared at my water-soaked hands, his face twisted with disgust. He pulled his secretary, who was snuggled in his arms, even closer. Why can't you shake off these petty low-class habits? Never mind. Luna's pregnant, you'll take good care of her and no more of your clumsy nonsense. With that he looked at me as if I were dirt beneath his feet, then wrapped an arm around Luna Sue and strode toward the master bedroom. Luna's eyes glinted with unbridled triumph, but she still tugged at his sleeve, feigning timidity. Shingu, aren't you afraid sister will be upset? Upset. Silas let out a sharp, mocking laugh, his tone dripping with contempt. You don't know her, do you? She's so obsessed with me she'd die without me. She's like a dog, groveling and pathetic. Just ignore her. Treat her like the free babysitter she is. After humiliating me to their heart's content, the two of them finally left, cackling like hyenas. Through it all, a gentle, demure smile never left my face. My hands never stopped scrubbing the clothes in the basin. Madam, are you really not angry? Asked Mama Wang, one of the servants who'd witnessed everything. Her eyes were filled with pity and sympathy. I shook my head, my voice soft and sweet. Why would I be angry? He couldn't bear to divorce me, he still loves me after all. Besides, the fact that he brought his mistress home for me to take care of is a sign of his trust. When the baby is born, it'll be his. And it'll be mine. My loveful ramblings made Mama Wang's face turn ashen. She glared at me, clearly exasperated by my spinelessness, then sighed heavily and walked away. From the master bedroom, loud fits of laughter erupted, obviously meant for my ears. But I didn't mind one bit. I hung the freshly washed clothes to dry, then pushed open the door to the master bedroom without knocking. The couple froze mid-intimacy, clearly not expecting me to walk in. Oh my goodness, did I interrupt you? I'm so sorry, I'm such a klutz. I gasped, covering my mouth in faux shock and stumbling backward, apologizing profusely. I just came to pack my things. Silas was in no mood to be interrupted. He was seething with rage. But he knew full well that I was always this scatterbrained. He ground his teeth and snarled, "Hurry up and pack, then get the hell out of here." But Luna had no intention of letting me off the hook so easily. She slid off Silas's lap in a graceful, deliberate motion, then looked down her nose at me, her tone dripping with condescension. "You're not being very sensible, sister. Everything in this house was bought with Shinji's money. He can give it to whomever he pleases. You can't claim any of it as yours no matter how hard you try." Her words were loaded with innuendo. She placed a hand on her swollen belly and patted it gently. But those jewelry pieces and clothes are mine." I sniffled, biting my lip and arguing weakly, my eyes brimming with tears. "Enough. Luna's right," Silas snapped, his patience wearing thin. He waved a hand dismissively, ordering me to leave. "Everything here is mine in the end. If she wants it, why are you being so petty and fighting over it?" My eyes welled up with tears. Those things were all carefully chosen by me. Why did I have to hand them over to Luna Sue just like that? Then. At least let me take this with me. My trembling finger pointed to an unopened box on the edge of the bed, inside which lay the gown I'd waited months to get. Luna's eyes lit up with a cunning glint. She wrapped her arms around Silas's and shook it, pouting coquettishly. But I want it too, Shingo. In a few months, my belly will be too big to fit into it. Get out. Silas roared at me without a shred of mercy, claiming the gown for Luna with that single word. I hated to part with the dress, but I loved Silas more than anything, and I hated even more to see him unhappy. With a heavy heart, I wiped my tears and trudged back to the guest room. 02 No matter how heartbroken I was, I still got up the next morning and prepared breakfast for Silas as usual. But when he saw the delicious, meticulously prepared spread on the table, his face darkened. He swept his arm across the table, sending my hard-earned meal crashing to the floor. Liao, have you grown a backbone overnight? Did you forget everything I told you yesterday about taking care of Luna? He snarled. Luna immediately burst into tears, putting on a show of being wronged yet still understanding. She sniffled and said, Shingu, don't be angry. I'm sure sister didn't make this spread out of spite. She didn't mean to give me a hard time just because I took her things. Silas's anger flared even hotter at her words. He grabbed a bowl and hurled it at my feet. The shattering porcelain sliced open my ankle, drawing blood. I let out a small cry of pain, then scrambled to apologize profusely, bowing my head repeatedly. I'm so sorry. I'm so clumsy, I completely forgot. Please don't be angry, it's bad for the baby. Tell me what you want to eat and I'll make it right away. Silas remembered my usual scatterbrained self. His eyes flicked to my bleeding foot and he let out a cold snort. If you know you're wrong, then hurry up and go make it. Let me warn you, if you still want to stay in this house and keep your precious title of Mrs. Shen, you'd better behave yourself. With that, he pulled Luna onto his lap and began feeding her from the few dishes that had survived his tantrum. Oh, Shingu's sister's still here. Don't be so bold, Luna giggled, shooting me a triumphant glance. The two of them flirted shamelessly, treating me like I was invisible. I bit my lip and turned to trudge back to the kitchen to make the breakfast that was never even needed. Sure enough, when I brought the new tray of food to the dining room, it was met with nothing but disdain. Luna didn't touch a single bite. After they'd finished their sickeningly sweet display of affection, the pair left for the company together, not returning until late that night. Luna was wearing the gown I'd been longing for. She twirled around in front of me, flaunting it like a trophy. It looks stunning on me, doesn't it? This dress would have been a total waste on someone like you, she sneered. Silas's eyes were filled with admiration as he looked at her. He didn't miss the chance to take a dig at me either. Absolutely breathtaking. It suits you perfectly. Luna's going to the banquet with me tonight. You stay home and behave, don't come and embarrass me, he ordered. His eyes raked over my plain house dress and his lips curled in disgust. Some people are just born with low taste, they'll never shake off that petty, commoner vibe. I twisted the hem of my dress nervously, my voice trembling with hurt. But I'm your wife. Silas's expression grew even more irritated at my words. He ran a hand through his hair, then glanced at Luna, who was now pretending to be on the verge of tears over my words. In the end, he still refused my plea. Enough. You've been to banquets 100 times before, can't you just let Luna have this one? Remember to have the hangover soup and Luna's midnight snack ready. No more nonsense. With that final order, I had no choice but to agree, though my face fell with obvious dejection. To make up for it, Silas transferred a large sum of money into my bank account. Having eased his guilty conscience, he wrapped an arm around Luna and left without a second glance. That night, the banquet was a glittering affair, filled with beautiful women in fancy gowns and wealthy men clinking champagne flutes. Silas listened to the endless compliments about himself and his gorgeous date, but his mind was strangely elsewhere. What a lucky man you are, Mr. Shin, successful in business and blessed with such a beautiful wife, one guest said with a smile. The man beside him quickly elbowed him, silently warning him that he'd made a mistake. But Luna just giggled behind her hand, her eyes full of malice. Oh, I'm not Mr. Shin's wife. But thank you for the kind words. I suppose I will be soon enough, she said, her voice dripping with confidence. To everyone's surprise, Silas's face darkened instantly. He shot her a sharp glare and snapped, "Don't talk nonsense." Luna was used to getting her way with him, and with the pregnancy giving her even more leverage, she immediately wrenched her hand out of his grip in a fit of pique. She felt humiliated that Silas had embarrassed her in front of everyone. She stamped her foot angrily, ready to storm off. Silas panicked and reached out to pull her back. Their tussle quickly turned heated, the air thick with awkward sexual tension. But just as Luna tilted her head up, her lips parted to demand a kiss from Silas, she suddenly felt a cold draft on her skin. 03 in front of the entire banquet hall, the gown on Luna Sue's body shredded like tattered rags, slipping off her frame piece by piece. Their earlier tussle had already drawn most people's attention. Now everyone stared dumbfounded at the spectacle unfolding before them. Luna screamed, clawing at the fabric to cover herself, but the more she touched it, the faster it disintegrated into nothing. She had no choice but to drop to the floor, yanking Silas Shin's suit jacket off his shoulders to wrap around her body. She glared at the onlookers, screaming in impotent rage. "Stop looking. All of you. If you don't, Shingu will ruin every last one of you." Silas, who'd felt a twinge of pity for her a moment ago, froze mid-movement. He knew full well that half the people in this room were far too powerful for him to afford offending. In an instant, whatever sympathy he'd had curdled into seething anger. He thought Luna was utterly ungrateful, that she'd humiliated him beyond repair in front of all his peers. His face turned ashen. He shot a stiff, apologetic look at the surrounding guests, then all but dragged Luna, her dignity in tatters, out of the banquet hall. Inside a private lounge, Silas roared at Luna, his voice echoing off the walls. "What the hell were you thinking? I can put up with your tantrums at home, but did you really have to make a fool of me in front of everyone here?" This time Luna's tears were real. She crumpled to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably as she begged for forgiveness. "I'm sorry, Shingu. Well, I thought you didn't love me anymore. I swear I didn't mean to." She knelt at Silas's feet, clinging to his calves as she poured out her loyalty. Silas's anger finally cooled. He was about to call someone to find her a change of clothes when Luna's tone suddenly shifted, her voice turning soft and vulnerable. I was seen by everyone. I don't want to live anymore. Shingu, you won't abandon me, will you? Oh right. That gown, it was defective. It must have been Thea's doing. She's been holding a grudge against me for taking her things, I just know it. Wah. The last sliver of guilt Silas had felt toward me vanished without a trace. He stormed home with his wronged mistress, ready to tear me a new one, only to find the midnight snack he'd ordered me to make for Luna laid out neatly on the dining table. It was a lavish spread, colorful and aromatic. Next to it sat his hangover soup, still steaming slightly. I was slumped over the table, fast asleep after waiting up for him. The sound of their footsteps jolted me awake and I looked up, bleary-eyed and disheveled. "Honey, you're home?" Silas's throat tightened. But he still managed to snarl at me, his voice dripping with accusation. "Did you do this on purpose? Did you want to humiliate Luna at the banquet?" "Thea Liao, I never knew you could be such a vicious, scheming bitch. What are you talking about?" I blinked innocently, my eyes wide and confused. "I didn't even go to the banquet. How could I have hurt her? Besides, you know me, honey. I love you so much that I love everyone you love. How could I ever do anything to hurt Sister Luna?" Silas's anger deflated as quickly as it had flared. He knew exactly how obsessed I was with him. That was why he dared to bring his mistress home and order me to take care of her without a second thought. I was like a piece of gum stuck to his shoe, impossible to shake off. I'd grovel and debase myself just to stay by his side. He tried to ignore the faint, nagging sense of unease creeping up his spine, then snapped at me again, his voice still cold. "Then explain this, why did the dress fall apart on its own?" I rolled my eyes, thinking hard for a long moment before slapping my forehead with a look of sudden realization. "Oh, right. I totally forgot about that. That gown was a prototype sent to me by a designer friend. It's made of a brand new biodegradable material." I hung my head, looking meek and contrite. "I wanted to take it with me. But you insisted on giving it to her." Luna had broken into a sweat during her argument with Silas. The fabric, already designed to decompose easily, had simply fallen apart the moment she'd moved around too much. Silas remembered my usual clumsy, scatterbrained self. A vein throbbed on his forehead, but there was nothing he could say to blame me, not really. But just then Luna tugged on his arm, leaning in to whisper something in his ear, her cheeks flushing with a shy, coquettish smile. Silas's expression softened. He shot me a sharp, dismissive glance and said, "Since you know you messed up, you can make up for it. You go buy some lube and condoms. Luna and I need them." 04 This was a deliberate, cruel slap to my face. Even Silas wasn't sure if I'd finally snap and refuse. Deep down, a tiny part of him even hoped I would. I looked up at him, my eyes wide with disbelief, brimming with tears of heartbreak. After a long agonizing pause I slowly got to my feet ready to head out the door. Fuck Liao. Are you really this much of a spineless doormat? A crash sounded behind me, followed by Luna's panicked cries as Silas hurled something against the wall in a fit of rage. I sighed, turning back to look at him. Tears hung precariously on my lashes, my voice trembling with sorrow. I told you. I love you. I'd do anything for you. With that I walked out the door without looking back. By the time I returned the two of them had already gone upstairs, their moans and giggles drifting down from the master bedroom. I bit my lip, my heart aching as I climbed the stairs, only to trip and stumble, the bag in my hand flying open. The bottle of lube inside hit the floor, its cap popping off with a clink. My knee scraped against the hardwood, the raw flesh stinging sharply. But I didn't dare let Silas wait. I gritted my teeth through the pain, grabbing the bottle and hurrying to the master bedroom before retreating to tend to my wound. Inside the bedroom, Luna clung to Silas like a vine, her voice syrupy and seductive. Go. The doctor said it's okay now that I'm 4 months along. Just be gentle, alright? Silas was already worked up beyond reason. He groped her hips, a lazy, lecherous grin spreading across his face. You little minx. Teasing me like this. You'll be begging for mercy soon enough. The room heated up quickly. Silas fumbled for the lube I'd bought, squirting a generous amount into his hand without a second thought. Luna was the first to notice something was wrong. A cold, slippery sensation was followed by a sharp, stinging pain. She brushed it off, thinking it was just from not having sex in months. She wrapped her legs around Silas's waist, urging him on. Silas had been pent up for far too long. He didn't hold back. But before he could even get into a rhythm, a searing, needle-like pain shot through his most sensitive area, so intense that he went soft instantly. What the fuck? What kind of cheap shit did Liao buy? It was a maddening mix of pain and itching. He scratched at himself frantically, but his fingers came away empty. There was nothing there, yet the agony was unbearable. Luna was faring no better. She scrambled to turn on the lights, examining herself in the mirror, but found nothing out of the ordinary. But the pain was excruciating. Every movement sent a fresh wave of torment through her body. Even the lightest touch felt like fire. Helpless, the two of them were forced to rush to the hospital in the middle of the night. When the doctor heard what had happened, his expression twisted into something between amusement and disbelief. But after examining both of them thoroughly, he found nothing wrong. No wounds, no swelling, no signs of infection. He couldn't diagnose the cause, so he eventually chalked it up to psychological distress or an allergic reaction. Silas and Luna were beside themselves with pain, shame, and frustration. They nearly got into a shouting match with the on-call doctor before storming out of the hospital. Meanwhile, I slept soundly through the night, waking up refreshed the next morning. I was about to start making breakfast when I spotted a glistening puddle on the floor by the stairs. I let out a soft gasp, staring at the tiny, almost invisible shards scattered in the spill. When Silas had flipped the table in his rage yesterday, he'd broken a few pairs of chopsticks reinforced with fine glass fibers. The fibers were minuscule, practically impossible to see with the naked eye. Once they embedded themselves in the skin, they were nearly impossible to remove. Even doctors couldn't get them all out. Surely it was just a coincidence that some of those fibers had gotten stuck in the lube bottle when I dropped it last night? Well, my bad. I was just so clumsy and scatterbrained after all, forgetting to clean up the mess properly and then tripping over my own feet. I tidied up the spill and finished making breakfast. I was just about to head out when Silas and Luna stumbled through the front door. They looked utterly exhausted, their faces pale and haggard after a night of torture from the glass fibers. Silas looked like he was in constant agony. His eyes flicked to the bandage on my knee and his brows furrowed, but he didn't say a word. Luna had lost all interest in sniping at me. She dragged herself up the stairs, her legs shaking with every step. I blinked up at them, my eyes wide and innocent, watching the two of them trudge upstairs, utterly defeated in body and spirit. Shingu, do you think Thea did this to us on purpose? Luna whispered weakly, her voice trembling with fear. 05 Luna Sue finally snapped. The thought of enduring this endless, agonizing pain for who knew how long filled her with suffocating frustration. Impossible, Silas Shin muttered, equally miserable. He lit a cigarette and shifted awkwardly in his seat, trying his best to avoid any contact between his skin and the fabric of his pants. Even if she did scheme something, she'd never hurt me. She's so head over heels in love with me, she'd never have the heart to lay a finger on me. Luna had to agree. A spineless, doormat wife like me made being a mistress feel utterly unrewarding. There was no challenge in it at all. She pouted, crossing her arms over her chest. Maybe the pain will go away in a few days. But still, I don't want her waiting on me anymore. For the next month, the two of them finally stopped causing trouble. I continued to take care of Silas's every need, while Luna's daily life was handed over to Mama Wang. The three of us living under the same roof. For once it was peaceful. But as the searing, constant pain faded to occasional stabbing twinges, Luna's restlessness returned. She began badgering Silas to divorce me and marry her at once. Drop it. I'll give you anything else you want, anything but not this. Luna cried, threw tantrums, even threatened to harm the baby in her womb, but none of it worked. Only Silas and I knew the truth. He would never be the one to file for divorce. After all, keeping a mistress was considered a trivial indulgence in their elite circle. But a messy public divorce? That would ruin him. The property division alone would drag on for years. And their grand wedding, how he'd paraded me around, flaunting the benefits my family had showered him with, was still fresh in everyone's minds. Not to mention my parents' dying wish for him to take care of me had even made the news. If he divorced me for his mistress, his reputation and his company's stock prices would both plummet into the gutter. So yes, he could bring Luna to private banquets, but he would never dare expose her to the public eye. Silas fell into a daze, thinking of me, the woman who'd doted on him for years, who'd worshipped the ground he walked on. A flicker of guilt tugged at his heart. But that faint guilt vanished almost instantly when Luna threw herself at him, apologizing profusely and showering him with coquettish affection. As Luna's belly grew rounder, she stopped seeing me as a threat entirely. With my weak, submissive act, I was nothing more than a joke to her. Besides, my cooking was excellent. She dropped all pretense of politeness, even talking Silas into giving Mama Wang a vacation so she could order me around like a personal maid. This was the 7th night in a row she'd woken me up from a sound sleep, demanding I make her a pot of soup. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was just torturing me for fun. Even pregnant women got hungry at night, but there were plenty of quicker, easier snacks she could have had. But no, she insisted I stand by the stove, stirring the soup in a tiny clay pot for hours on end, never once leaving her side. Silas was annoyed by her antics, but he always placated me with money, citing her pregnancy as an excuse. "You're nothing but his pet," Luna sneered, pinching my cheek hard. Malice glinted in her eyes, thick and unmasked. She reached out her hand toward the scalding hot clay pot on the stove. "What do you think would happen if I burned myself right now? Do you think Shingu would blame you?" Her eyes locked onto mine, hungry for the sight of me begging and groveling. I looked absolutely terrified, scrambling to my feet to pull her hand away, only to trip over my own feet. My palm slammed down on hers, pressing it hard against the searing hot surface of the pot. A blood-curdling scream erupted from Luna's lips, echoing through the entire villa. Her delicate hand was almost instantly blistered and red. She shoved me away violently, her face contorted in agony as she ran to the sink, plunging her hand into cold water. Silas was jolted awake by the noise. He stormed into the kitchen, his face dark with fury. "Viv, what the hell are you doing now?" 06 What did you say? Luna's eyes bulged in disbelief, the pain in her hand momentarily forgotten. "She's bullying me like this and you're yelling at me? You're the one who's always picking fights," Silas sighed, rubbing his temples. Ever since Luna had developed this midnight snack obsession, he'd gotten precious little sleep. Time and time again Luna had complained that my soup was too salty, too bland, that I was deliberately slacking off. But whenever he'd bothered to check, he'd found it was nothing more than her unreasonable tantrums. "I'm so sorry, it's my fault. I'm just so clumsy, I accidentally bumped into Sister Luna." I stammered, my voice trembling with fear. "Liao, don't make excuses for her," Silas cut me off sharply. "She's just using her pregnancy as an excuse to make everyone's lives miserable. Besides, if you really wanted to hurt her, you've had plenty of chances these past few weeks. And let's be honest, you're far too spineless to ever hurt anyone." Silas reached out to take Luna's injured hand, intending to examine it. Luna let out another shrill scream. Only then did he see the state of her hand. Her entire palm was bright red, swollen and blistering, a huge blister the size of an egg already forming on the back of it. Silas's anger vanished in an instant. Panic took over. He bundled Luna into the car, rushing her to the hospital in the middle of the night again. Because she was pregnant, the doctors couldn't prescribe most painkillers or ointments. All they could do was tell her to keep the wound clean and let it heal on its own. Luna dragged herself home with Silas, utterly dejected. The next time she saw me, her eyes were filled with wariness and suspicion. Not an ounce of her previous arrogance remained. She never dared to torment me again. No matter how she tried to explain or complain, Silas would only see her as a jealous, unreasonable woman throwing a tantrum. He even complained to her once, saying her constant fussing had made me so exhausted that I'd ruined the expensive shirt he was supposed to wear to a business meeting. Luna began to catch a glimpse of my true colors. Terrified that I might target her unborn child, she turned all her attention to clinging to Silas, trying to win back his favor. One evening, Silas took a bite of the food on the table, then frowned in disgust. "Thelia, why does this taste so terrible?" I twisted the hem of my dress nervously, hurrying to explain. It wasn't me who cooked this, honey. Sister Luna made it." Luna had slaved away in the kitchen for hours, her belly swollen with child, only to receive a scathing critique. She forced a smile onto her face, rushing over to him, her voice sweet as honey. "Shingo, I just wanted to take care of you. I know you work so hard every day, so I thought I'd cook you a nice, nourishing meal myself." Her eyes darted to me, sharp and accusatory. "I'm so clumsy now with this big belly. I can't exactly go shopping or get facials every day like sister can." Her intention was crystal clear, she was trying to replace me. But Silas was completely unimpressed. He even scolded her sharply, telling her to stop moving around so much now that she was pregnant. To be honest, he was a little touched that she'd gone to so much trouble for him, even with her pregnancy. But the food was just so bad. After a long, tiring day at work, the last thing he wanted was to choke down something this awful. Besides, who else but Thea knew him so well? Who else could take care of him so perfectly, anticipating his every need? With that thought, he gave me a rare smile, praising my cooking skills effusively. I lit up like a puppy who'd just been given a treat, throwing my arms around his neck and showering him with affectionate coos, encouraged by his warmth. Luna's face turned as black as thunder. But she wasn't ready to give up yet. Silas was already growing tired of her. If she didn't fight for her place now, once the baby was born, he'd probably just take the child and kick her out. She had to find a way to get rid of me before the baby came into the world. 07 In the days that followed, Luna Sue switched up her tactics. Her naturally stunning features had softened with pregnancy, lending her a gentle, maternal glow. A little makeup was all it took to make her look radiant with the beauty of impending motherhood. Gone were her childish tantrums and petty jealousies. Now she was Silas Shin's confidant, a soothing voice of reason by his side, gentle and forgiving. All the anger and frustration Silas brought home from work melted away in her presence, like sinking into a pool of warm water that wrapped around him and soothed every inch of his body. He began to rely on Luna voluntarily, even agreeing without hesitation when she asked him to skip work and accompany her to prenatal checkups. Once again, I was reduced to a lowly servant at their beck and call. By the 7th month of her pregnancy, Luna's counterattack began. She would suddenly start vomiting violently after eating the meals I cooked. She would trip and fall on the spotless floors I just mopped. Each incident was a dramatic spectacle, complete with multiple ambulance calls, but every time the doctors ran tests they found nothing wrong. "Shenji, do you think sister is jinxing our baby?" Luna's eyes were red-rimmed from retching, making her look like a pitiful little rabbit. She tugged at Silas's sleeve, her voice trembling with fear. "I don't want to think this about sister. But every time she's around, the baby in my belly feels so uncomfortable." Her hand rested on her swollen stomach, her eyes filled with nothing but fear and worry. Silas's resolve finally wavered. He pulled me aside, his voice low, half threat and half cajolery. "Until Luna gives birth, you'll stay at the villa in Linyuan." He paused, watching my hurt, dejected expression. His Adam's apple bobbed. "I'll transfer the property title to your name. Don't worry, I'll personally come pick you up as soon as the baby is born." Behind Silas, Luna shot me a triumphant look. Her eyes screamed, "See? No matter how humble you are, no matter how much you grovel like a dog, it's no match for one little whimper from me." She would use these next few months to cling to Silas tightly, to turn me into nothing but a forgotten outcast. I looked at Silas in shock and heartbreak, my eyes brimming with tears. My voice cracked as I spoke. You can't do this to me. You know how much I love you. I can't live without you. Now you're throwing me out of the house. Are you trying to kill me?" A flicker of guilt crossed Silas's face. His lips parted as if he was about to take back his words, when Luna suddenly tugged hard on his arm. She gagged loudly, her eyes darting to me in terror, as if I'd just done something terrible to her. Silas closed his eyes then opened them again, his voice cold and final. Be good. Right now nothing matters more than the baby. Okay. When I still refused to budge, just staring at him with that pleading look in my eyes, he finally lost his temper. His face turned black with rage. He ordered Mama Wong to pack my things, then threw me out of the house like a piece of garbage. Before I left, Luna sneered triumphantly. Goodbye, sister. I wonder if you'll still have a place in this house when you come back. I threw myself against the closed front door, screaming and begging, but Silas's heart was made of stone. He refused to let me in. It wasn't until nightfall that I finally left, looking back over my shoulder again and again, unwilling to go. Luna watched from the upstairs window, a smug smile on her face. Her joy was impossible to hide. Perfect. She would make the most of these months to kick me out of Silas's life for good. Little did she know my departure was only the beginning of her nightmare. 08 With Thea Liao gone, Silas Shin couldn't shake the feeling that the house was empty, too empty. But Luna was so soft, so clingy. She dragged him to pick out tiny baby clothes and toys, making him acutely aware of his impending role as a father. He told himself he'd been too cruel to Luna. Even after she gave birth, he couldn't give her the title of Mrs. Shin. All he could do was let her stay by his side, nameless and faceless. So he pushed aside that nagging sense of emptiness, devoting himself entirely to taking care of Luna. Luna reveled in her newfound status. She paraded around the villa like she was already the lady of the house, ordering the servants left and right, living the life of a wealthy mistress in advance. But just as she was daydreaming about kicking me out for good and taking my place, disaster struck. A puddle of water on the floor caused her to slip and fall hard right onto her stomach. Her blood-curdling scream echoed through the entire villa. For the third time, an ambulance rushed her to the hospital. But she was 7 months pregnant and the fall had been too severe. Despite the doctor's best efforts, she not only lost the baby, she also lost her uterus. When Luna woke up in the hospital bed and heard the news, she completely lost her mind. She smashed everything within reach, screaming and crying, refusing to believe that the golden ticket to the upper class she'd been carrying had vanished just like that. Finally, she turned all her rage on me. It's her. It's definitely that bitch Thea Liao. She did this to me. Silas felt a pang of sympathy for her, for the child they'd lost, but her wild accusations still made him scoff. You already threw her out of the house. Isn't that enough? Stop being ridiculous. Your only job now is to rest and recover. Ridiculous. Luna's bloodshot eyes darted around, locking onto Silas. She let out a shrill, menacing laugh. Who else would want to hurt me? That was your own flesh and blood. And you're still defending that bitch. She grabbed a water glass from the nightstand and hurled it at Silas. He dodged, but the glass grazed his forehead, leaving a small cut. Call the police. I want to call the police. Why should that bitch live when my baby is dead? I want her uterus. I want her to pay with hers. Luna shrieked, waving her arms wildly as if she could already tear me limb from limb. Silas's veins bulged on his forehead. You're insane. I'm telling you, this has nothing to do with Thea Liao. But no matter how hard he tried to stop her, Luna called the police anyway. I was arrested and taken in for questioning on suspicion of intentional harm. At the police station I cried my eyes out, looking utterly devastated. Wah, I really don't know what's going on. Sister Sue already threw me out of the house. Why won't she leave me alone? I don't even dare to go back home. How could I possibly hurt her? The police reviewed the alibi I provided and checked the surveillance footage from the villa. They exchanged helpless glances, then shook their heads at Luna. Luna flew into a rage, lunging at me like a madwoman. I don't believe it. How else would that puddle of water have gotten there unless you tampered with it? At that moment I, the legal wife, looked far more pitiful than the mistress. I cowered behind the police officers, trembling with fear. It's all my fault, I sobbed. The air conditioner was broken. It kept leaking condensation. I was going to call someone to fix it. But I was so scatterbrained I completely forgot about it. I knew it. I told you she did it on purpose. Luna screamed. You owe me. You have to pay for my baby. You have to pay with your uterus. That's enough. Silas roared, cutting her off mid-rant. Any last shred of sympathy he'd felt for her was gone, replaced by nothing but embarrassment. He apologized profusely to the police, then dragged the still screaming Luna out of the station, only to be swarmed by reporters who'd been lying in wait outside. 2 months later, Silas Shin's company was completely in my grasp. After all, it had once been my company. I'd invested half the effort and my parents had provided the seed funding. The company had always been rightfully mine. Unfortunately, in the second year of our marriage, Silas had started cheating on me. Bit by bit, he'd sidelined me and kicked me out of the company's management. After my parents passed away, he'd become even more brazen, acting like he owned everything. But I loved him so much, how could I ever let myself be divorced, kicked out empty-handed and slink away from his life in disgrace? At first, I'd been a hysterical, raving mess. I'd fought with Silas every day, smashing things to pieces, driving him to the brink of madness. He'd looked at me with icy contempt and said, "Theo Liao, you need to know your place. So what if your family provided the seed money? So what if we founded the company together? If I wanted, you wouldn't get a single penny out of it. Be obedient, be sensible, and we can both keep our dignity. You can still live the life of a wealthy, carefree lady." So I'd learned to be good. After all, I loved him. As long as he stayed by my side, I would endure anything. Coincidentally, our wedding anniversary had rolled around. I'd invited reporters and influencers to witness our grand display of love, and accidentally gave Silas a huge anniversary gift, transferring half of his assets into my name. From that day on, everyone in the upper crust knew that half of Silas Shin's fortune was tied to me. He'd been furious, screaming and cursing, but marketing our faithful, devoted marriage had been a boon for the company's reputation. Reluctantly, he'd had to grit his teeth and accept it. Looking back now, it was clear women who listened to their husbands were the happiest. I'd followed his orders, stopped making a fuss, and now I finally had him tied firmly to my side. Now that Silas was confined to a wheelchair, stripped of almost all his social status, he was nothing more than a dog who could only wag his tail and beg for my mercy. There was no way he could stir up any more trouble. So I felt safe enough to take him to the party and flaunt our perfect love for everyone to see. I'd heard every word of his desperate pleas for help. I brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, picked up a glass of mango juice, the very thing Silas was deathly allergic to, and smiled as I pressed it into his trembling hand. "Honey, what are you talking about? I love you so much, how could I ever hurt you?" Silas forced a terrified smile onto his face, his eyes fixed on the glass of juice. His hands shook so violently he could barely hold it. "Drink it," I urged him softly, my voice dripping with honeyed menace. "Honey, don't you love me anymore?" Silas looked like he was about to cry. One sip of that juice and he'd either drop dead on the spot or be rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. He knew I was doing this on purpose. Under my eager, unblinking gaze, the pressure mounting with every passing second, he lifted the glass and touched the tip of his lips to the juice. Then he wet himself. A foul stench filled the air. Silas's former friends all frowned, their faces twisting with undisguised disgust. But I, his doting, devoted wife, didn't show the slightest sign of revulsion. I calmly helped him change his soiled diaper right there in front of everyone. The party ended abruptly. Everyone hurried to leave, their eyes darting away, too embarrassed to look at Silas. The last glimmer of light in his eyes flickered and died. But this was just the beginning. I gently wiped the tears from his face, my smile sickly sweet. We had a long, long life ahead of us. And my love for him, it was boundless.